bits moving in. So, got it. Got it. All right. Good evening once again. We return to the Mumonkan. Usual drill. I'll read the koan, talk, and then read it through one more time while talking about it, and then we will discuss. So this is number 9. Daitsu Chisho rather. So here is the koan, and I think everybody's familiar with them. But koans are these pithy typically exchanges between two Zen masters, or a Zen master and a student, which are kernels of truth. They're intended to, if we hold them in our hearts, in our minds, break open truth and drop us into direct experience of reality, of truth. So here is the koan, Daitsu Chisho. Once a monk said to Master Seijo of Koyo, Daitsu Chisho Buddha did zazen on a body seat for 10 kalpas. Buddha Dharma was not manifested, nor did he attain Buddhahood. Why was it? Joe said, your question is splendid indeed. The monk persisted. He did practice zazen on a body seat. Why did he not attain Buddhahood? Joe replied, because he did not attain Buddhahood. Okay. Mumon's commentary. So there's a commentary and then a poem. The commentary. The old foreigner may know it, but he cannot really grasp it. An ordinary man, if he knows it, an ordinary man, yes, right. An ordinary man, if he knows it, is a sage. A sage, if he grasps it, is an ordinary man. And the poem. Rather than give the body relief, give relief to the mind. When the mind is at peace, the body is not distressed. If mind and body are both set free, why must the holy saint become a lord? So I'll remind you before I read through it one more time, a basic premise here, or a basic principle of working with these koans. These are stories. So the story here of the monk who spoke to Master Seijo, this was a really committed monk. He'd probably been in the monastery for 10, 20 years, and waking up was really important to him. Penetrating this great mystery was really important to him. And he had stumbled into this question: why did this Daitsu Chisho Buddha not attain Buddhahood? He'd stumbled into this question, he was holding it, and he was really struggling with it. And it was kind of a matter of life or death to him. It was just crucially important. So this is not a frivolous exchange. This is something of profound and deep importance to this monk. And that intensity of investigation is something that when this koan is assigned to a student, that student is expected to take this koan on with that same intensity of investigation, that same total immersion in this koan, 24/7 by 365, and this becomes your investigation. And as you lock on it, everything else kind of drops away, and then the gears kind of seize. So there's a really profound intensity in this. Okay, so once a monk said to Master Seijo of Koyo, the commentaries I've seen don't say much about this Master Seijo, and the monk is nameless, so that's not really the point here. It's just to know the monk was practicing with this extreme intensity, with this life and death question, and he was looking to Master Seijo as the font of wisdom, the person who would carry all the answers, the person who would help him break through this barrier. The question: Daitsu Chisho Buddha did zazen on a body seat for 10 kalpas. So there's a comment here about who Daitsu Chisho Buddha is. Daitsu means the one who has attained at all places the no nature, no self reality of all things. Chisho means one who does not rely on any teaching and has no doubt whatsoever under any circumstances. And Buddha, of course, is one whose mind is pure and lucid, whose light penetrates through the Dharma world. So, those are three words which, put together, they mean what I would simply, out of the Pali Canon, call, Tathagata, thus come, thus gone, which is to say, there's nobody there. From the other side, there has been such a profound letting go of everything, of all attachments, including most particularly attachment to anything anybody would call self, that there really is nobody there. The awareness that is manifesting in this physical form is an awareness that is so totally non-attached to this physical form that there really, you can't say there's anybody there. Thus come, thus gone. It just shows up and disappears. Did Zazen. Zazen is a Japanese word. The Zen piece comes from the Chinese word Chan, and it means sitting. So Zazen is just sitting. Now, this just sitting is often misunderstood. It's like, just sit, don't get up and walk around. No, just sitting. There is nothing there but sitting. There is no distracting thought. There's no wondering how long I'm going to sit and what I'm going to do with this pain in my leg. There is nothing there. There is nobody sitting. There is just sitting. So this is entering deep settled mind, and this just sitting. Did Zazen on the body seat. Body is the awakening seat. Classically the body seat would be under a body tree, right? So it's just this place where one sits and one knows that awakening can happen there. For 10 kalpas means a long time. There's probably symbolism there. It probably means the 10 parameters or something like that, but it's a long, long, long time. So he sat there for a long time. Buddha Dharma was not manifested, nor did he attain Buddhahood. How could Buddha Dharma not be manifested when somebody's practicing? So the Buddha Dharma is just the teachings, it's reality, it's simply being. But it was not manifest. How could it not be manifested? The dichotomy here is between the manifest and the unmanifest, the relative, the absolute and the relative, the non-conditioned and the conditioned. This is all conditioned, right? And the non-conditioned is the fabric, if you will, that lies behind this. So it was not manifest. Doesn't say it remained unmanifest. But what is this manifestation? What is this manifestation? What is any manifestation? Nor did he attain Buddhahood. So in the Diamond Sutra, there's a line, it occurs 2 or 3 times during the Diamond Sutra, where the Buddha talks about attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which is supreme perfect enlightenment. Is how that, if it's translated, that's how it's usually translated. It usually isn't translated because it doesn't really translate, but it means just this, it's the complete dropping off of body, mind, and even a dropping off. It is Tathagata, right? So this is the supreme perfect enlightenment, where all attachments are released. But in the Diamond Sutra, it's the thing where they call this a bell because it isn't a bell, and because it isn't a bell, they call it a bell. We've got to do something with it, even though we recognize that's what it is. It isn't a bell, but we've got to do something with it, so we call it a bell. So the Diamond Sutra is full of this kind of stuff, and it says, why do we say the Buddha attained Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi? Well, there was no teaching leading to Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. and there is no accomplishment of attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. And if the Buddha did attain something called Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, he wouldn't be a Buddha. Therefore, we call this Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Same kind of things going on here. Nor did he attain Buddhahood. It's not the Buddhahood that's being questioned. It can't be actually named or described or looked at. It's the attaining that's being questioned. What is this attaining? There is nothing that can be attained, and there can be no attaining. There is only original nature. That's it. There is only original nature. There's a dropping off and a revealing. Buddha Dharma was not manifested, nor did he attain Buddhahood. Why was it? Joe said, "Your question is splendid indeed. What a magnificent answer. You've already answered it, right? Your question is what you need. Just look at your question. It's already right there." Poor monk. Straight past it. Missed it. Completely missed it. The monk persisted. He did practice zazen on a body seat. Why did he not attain Buddhahood? Very intense. Just flew right past him. He's just persisting. Joe replied, because he did not attain Buddhahood. There are 5 schools of Zen, and one of them was Fa Yen, and Fa Yen was quite famous for this. People would make statements to him, and he would say, "No, that's not it." And they would say, "Well, what is it then?" And he would just simply repeat the statement. My favourite example of this, which many of you know this one, so I'll say it fairly quickly. There's the the abbot coming into the monastery or the Buddha hall. He lights the incense, lights the candle, lights the incense. He does some prostrations, and so the young monks see him doing this, and they come in and do the same. He gets his broom, as the Zen master just sweeps them out. Go away, go away, go away! Stop doing that nonsense. And they don't understand. And sometime later, they see him in the Buddha hall, lighting the incense and doing his prostrations. They say, "Boss, what's up? What's that about?" He says, "This is how I practice my devotions." So the explanation, although it doesn't really, the explanations always go astray, but I'll give an explanation just hopefully to help. When the abbot was doing this, it was totally from the heart. There was no separation between him and the Buddha on the altar and the Buddha nature that represented. There was just no separation. He was the Buddha nature to which he was prostrating. It was, in the Sanatana Dharma, this is all the game of Leela. It's Shakti Shiva, creation just chasing its tail. It's all a game. It's all the same thing. It's just this game. And he was that whole game. That whole playing was right there. When the monks came in and did it, they were following steps. There was a logic, there was a thinking. It wasn't this total immersion in the act. So he swept them away because they weren't doing it. They were missing. So the same is here. Why did he not attain Buddhahood? Because he did not attain Buddhahood. It's already in the question, you dolt, if you just go back to the question. But you have to understand, you have to, understand, we use that word. You have to understand it. You can't just intellectualize it, you have to understand it. So the commentary. The old foreigner may know it, but he can't really grasp it. The old foreigner is Bodhidharma, who is red hair, big bushy beard, Indian guy who came and brought Buddhism to China in the 5th century. That's who's being referred to here. And in the Blue Cliff Record, which was written a couple of hundred years later, a couple of hundred years earlier than this text, in the Blue Cliff Record, the translation I have of it is, this occurs several times through that book. I'll allow that the old, and these were in the commentaries to those koans, the commentaries said, I'll allow that the old barbarian knows, but not that he understands. So we're using the words the other way around, but semantics, the point is the same. So the old barbarian there is the old foreigner, which is Bodhidharma, and it's just recurring. I'll allow that he knows, but not that he understands. And it's pointing out the distinction between the heart knowing, the immersive knowing, the being, which is what the abbot was doing when he was doing his prostrations, and the aha, I get it, the bringing it back into the world and describing it, right? Making that distinction. The trying to hold on to it. So Cleary translates this, so the translation here is the old foreigner may know it, but he cannot really grasp it. And Cleary's translation is the old foreigner may know it, but he cannot really understand it. So maybe I'm getting his other words the wrong way around, but it's the same point. The understand is the grasp, and it's like trying to hold incense smoke in your hand. You can't do it. You can, it's like, grasp that. We try to do it by calling it a bell, but we miss. Bell is such a limited phrase, it can't get that. An ordinary man, if he knows it, is a sage. Like there are pictures like that one on the wall with that detail at the bottom, where buried in that detail, if you drop your eyes out of focus, you'll see a herd of wildebeest sweeping majestically across the plain. Once you see that, you know, you're a sage. A sage, if he grasps it, because you can't walk away with that, it's only when your eyes are out of focus. A sage, if he grasps it, is an ordinary man or an ordinary woman. Now there's actually another way of reading that, which is the ox herding pictures, and these are, there's always, that's another thing in these kinds, there's usually kind of double meanings in these things. Another way of reading this, it's the 10 ox herding pictures, which is the journey of somebody through to enlightenment. So you're first sitting and you're getting into your practice and starting to have some experiences. So you're looking for the ox. And then eventually you see the ox's tail in a bush and you keep on chasing it, then you see the ox and fun, you catch the ox. You put a ring through its nose, you tie a rope around it, and you jump on its back and you ride the ox off. And then the next picture is just white. It's emptiness. Total dropping off. But if you stay there, that's called Zen sickness. Because that is an attachment. That's an attachment to one half of reality, the unmanifest. And that's missing too, because the unmanifest does manifest. We've got to come back. So the last picture is riding the ox back into the marketplace, becoming an ordinary person again. The enlightened person washes the toilets, does the latrines. So that's the double meaning here. If a sage, if he grasps it, is an ordinary man. So if you really embody it as a sage, you come back into the world. So there's two ways of approaching that. The poem. Rather than give the body relief, give relief to the mind. Everything is mind. In this sense, the body is mind. The body is a story our mind has made up. Period. It's all mind. There's the consciousness only or the mind only school of Buddhism. It became a school because it kind of tilted a little bit and became doctrinal about it. But its teaching is picking up this basic premise, which is everything is mind. And we can actually, in our practice, we can experience this. We can notice, we can see how we dream our bodies into existence. Not saying they don't exist, not saying there's nothing here, but their manifestation as body, as arm, fingers, leg, that is something we dream into existence. It's all mind. So rather than give the body relief, give relief to the mind. Help the mind see clearly. And a lot of practice talks about dropping into the body because we get so caught up in the stories in our mind. But we're dropping into the body in order to simplify the mind practice, and the two really aren't separate. But there is a practice, an Ajahn Chah's practice is very much, we are training the mind. All we're doing is training the mind to see clearly. That's it. When the mind is at peace, the body is not distressed. If you're sitting and you get pain in your legs, and you are able mentally to be completely equanimous with that, if you're able to be completely non-attached to that pain, to recognize that you can't actually locate that pain is not me, it's not mine, there is nothing there of which I can say, this is what I am. It's impermanent, it's just a phenomenon. If we can truly experience that in our minds, then the mind is at peace and the body is not distressed. If mind and body are both set free, which is what that is, that's the start of it anyway. I mean, there's layers of dropping off, right? But that's where we're headed here. If mind and body are both set free, why must the holy saint become a lord? Let the holy saint just go wash the toilets. Nothing special. So I'll read the koan one more time, and then we'll see what this is bringing up for you all. Once a monk said to Master Seijo of Koyu, Daitsu Chisho Buddha did zazen on the body seat for 10 kalpas. Buddha Dharma was not manifested, nor did he attain Buddhahood. Why was it? Joe said, your question is splendid indeed. The monk persisted. He did practice on zazen on the body seat. Why did he not attain Buddhahood? Joe replied, because he did not attain Buddhahood. All right, you all enlightened now? Questions, comments, reflections, what does that bring up? Is that a question, Clay, or is that a rumination on the lower lip?
That's me thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot to unpack.
It is, yeah. Anand.
Yeah, I think the commentary helped, but just by listening the koan, it's was it's not easy to. But I think the commentary about the only thing I can I was thinking even after the commentary was the before I was thinking the Buddha Dharma and what is the other one? The enlightenment, the
awakening to Buddhahood.
The Buddhahood. So the koan makes me to think even Buddhahood is like a thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, if you are thinking like a thing, then that's right. Because that is not a thing, then that is what. That's answered my question. Otherwise, I was thinking Buddhahood is not a thing, but actually Buddhahood is a thing. That answers the question.
So it is neither a thing nor not a thing.
Yeah. So, but in this context, I think it is a thing. That's why the monk is thinking it is a thing. That's why.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Havana.
Yeah, when you were reading the koan and then the commentary and then the koan again, I felt like my mind was just like twisting into all different directions, like lots of paradoxes and
yeah.
just like really fascinating. And when you were mentioning the mind body thing, I was thinking about when I was going through postpartum. Postpartum was hit me pretty intensely, and I remember during like times where I just felt like my mind was like going through so much chaos and just like getting used to all the changes, feeling like hormonal and all the bodily changes, the pain as well. I remember just like the one thing that kept me going through the postpartum, other than my baby's cuteness, is just like taking a breath and then like just being, like, because there were so many directions where my mind was going, like, oh my god, what if this happens to the baby? Oh, you're being a bad mom to do this. Like, there were so many things, and I found myself actually like finding that, wow, I was very attached to my ego, because there was a part of me that was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I'm being held back. Oh, like, is this a mistake, or is this like, what's this gonna me? How's this gonna affect me in my life? How's this gonna change everything that in my life? And like, instead of letting my mind just like I guess follow those anxiety spirals, I just like would take a breath and kind of practice mindfulness, and it actually like helped center me a little bit. And like, it wasn't trying to distract from the pain or the suffering. It was just, okay, well, I'm just suffering right now. And it actually helped me through postpartum a lot. But it's like also hard to explain to other people that experience. Because I'm not making the pain go away. I'm just letting it be. And it's not like, I didn't feel like I was succumbing to defeat or anything. I wasn't giving up. But it's very hard to explain to people.
So here's another koan. How do you get rid of hot and cold? When it's hot, go completely into the heat. When it's cold, go completely into the cold. That's about exactly what you're talking about. Obviously, I am never going to give birth to a child, so I'm never going to experience that intensity. But there is a basic premise here, which is when in that intensity of experience, often of pain, there is nowhere to go. Your only option at the end of the day is to stop fighting and completely surrender to it. And what you're doing is the gap between the way things are and the way you want them to be is gone. That is suffering. That gap is suffering. What you've done is you've completely accepted reality as it is. That is where we find peace. Completely accepting reality as it is, and there's a profound clarity that comes with that. Supplement that with meditation or mindfulness, and then you can actually see what's happening as well as completely accepting it. Does that make sense?
It does.
That's used, by the way, in like military boot camps and the like, because they and I was when I went to Vietnam, my buddy for the day, when we were at the Coochie Tunnels, which is for those who don't know, that's where the Viet Cong they were tiny little tunnels underground, this matrix of tunnels, and near Saigon there's an area called the Coochie Tunnels where these are all visible. My mate for the day was somebody who was a tunnel rat. He was about 4'6" or 4'8" or something. Maybe he was 5 foot, but he was a short guy. And it was just amazing being with him as he was going back and reliving that experience. But he talked about his training experiences, and they were training the soldiers to, in anticipation that a bunch of them would get caught and tortured grotesquely. So they were basically giving them anticipatory torture. And they were taking them to the place where there was no option but to surrender, to completely submit to it. It doesn't sound, but it's, you know, it's what it doesn't. It sounds horrible. It just sounds so wrong in so many ways. But you know, it brings it to mind, and it's, you know, that's actually in a lot of initiation rituals. You know, the hanging by the pectoral muscles or being tied to the ground in the desert with the sun beating down and no water for several days. There, a lot of that is about exactly this. It's taking somebody to that place where there is no choice but to completely submit, completely surrender. So it's I'm labouring the point, and I forgot why I'm labouring it, but it's because I talked about it earlier. This is the intensity of the practice, the intensity of the question actually mirrors exactly what we're talking about. So we've got to bring that intensity to the question, really, to get that breakthrough into the complete letting go. Anand.
So just a question, when listening to these koans, it's very hard to understand the koan if you don't know the background of what Daitsu means and what the second word, what was the second word you said? The
Chisho.
Chisho means, right? After, you know, knowing that meaning, that helps, right? So that is, I mean, you need to have the knowledge of that to understand the koan, really, looks like.
It's a really interesting point and a really interesting conversation because, excuse me, there's this big fat book, you know, there's only like 50 pages of this, 48 pages of this 350 page book, the koan, the commentary and the poem. The rest of it is all this author's commentary, which goes into the kind of detail you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And so at one level, you read the koan and it's, oh my goodness, and then you get into that and you learn the personalities of the individual monastics who show. Some of these guys show up in many koans, so they're like these crusty people who very much have personalities. And there's the coding, like who is the old barbarian. So there's a lot of stuff like that, right? So at that level, yeah, it's really, really helpful. And for many years when I've been reading koans, it's really helpful. But then you move through that, and when, for example, when you're working with Joshu's mu, all you end up with is mu. That's it. So all the rest of it drops off, and you are back just with this very, very simple mu. And if you were to work with this koan, this particular one, where are we here? Number 9. You would probably end up simply with the line, why did he not attain Buddhahood? Because the whole of the story, all of the background, everything is in that one line. Why did he not attain Buddhahood? Because that also goes to Buddha Dharma was not manifested. Why did he not attain Buddhahood? So, yes, and then you keep going and you end up right back at this really, really, really simple statement, which can only be answered by this kensho, by this direct experience of really, really, really intuitively, profoundly knowing, getting the right verb here, knowing the answer to why did he not attain Buddhahood. Beth.
My very favorite part of this koan tonight, and thanks to your showing the double meaning of the sage who grasps it becomes ordinary, and the two ways of looking at it, in the fact that it's like both are right, neither
That's right.
are right.
That's exactly right.
In that in itself just personifies that fluidity, that non-selfness.
Exactly. And so that statement, that ambivalence, that profound ambivalence, is all within that single statement. Why did he not attain Buddhahood? All there. That's just exploding that statement, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think when I first heard it, I put too much emphasis on, well, it's all about attaining, or in other parts, grasping, but it's much more than just
Yes, it
hinging
is.
on that word.
Yes, it is.
In a way, it's the not landing, right?
Yes, that's right. And that's why, back to Anand's comment, we start by saying, what the hell is this? And then we read all this and we figure out all the metaphors and all the historical elements and all the layered nuances that we understand.
The
and
gift wrap and the ribbons.
that's
and the,
right. We get through all of that and it's really pretty. And then we, the instruction manual. And then we get back to that really simple statement, the real heart of the koan. Because all that's done, all that study has done is allow us to really hold that simple heart of the state of the koan and really dive into it with the intensity of a woman giving birth. And then just get that direct experience, that direct, complete opening up and surrendering to it. And we're talking about this with koans, but this same intensity, this same opening up is absolutely present with all, or the opportunity therefore, is absolutely present with all of our practice. We were all just sitting right now for 40 minutes. And we can sit there and lollygag along and shuffle our legs and let our minds drift, or we can really, really concentrate. At the end of a famous book by Philip Kapleau, 3 Pillars of Zen, famous because it's done in the Rinzai Zen tradition, and there's a particular approach to the way that people are practicing sitting and practicing. The idea is you sit and you're looking for kensho, you're looking for these awakenings. And on the last morning, the instructors, the people who are kind of in charge of walking around saying, come on, push, 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 you've got an hour left, to get kensho. They're really trying to get that intensity into their sitting practice. It's there if you want to bring it forward. I've just done a quick count, and I can safely say most of you, because it's slightly more than half, 4 out of 7, have been silent. Do any of you who have been silent have anything to say? Clay?
I'm probably just repeating stuff that anybody else has said, but what this is speaking to me is that it's not until we give up chasing what we want or running away from what we don't want that we get what we need.
Correct.
And realize that that's what we wanted all along.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
One of my favourite koans, the active part of it is, how did you cross the flood? Said the Dewa to Buddha. He said, neither pushing forward nor standing still. Pushing forward, I got caught in the whirlpool. Standing still, I sank. So neither pushing forward nor standing still, I crossed the flood. And the flood is, of course, to get to the other shore. There are layered meanings, and there are like 4 different kinds of flood that it's talking to, but at the most basic level, it's exactly what you're saying.
I fought going in a massage for like 5 years because it's a stereotype. And then when I finally was like, well, I got to make a living somehow.
Yeah.
And I got into it, and it's what I needed all my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not because of the money or even the industry. It's the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And you had to just let go and jump right in.
And not everybody can do that.
No, not everyone should.
I mean, not everybody can come around and be open to that very thing that they've been pushing away for 5 years.
Oh. I thought you were talking about myself.
Yes, not everybody can do that either. But yeah, but I mean that.
Well, it goes to the surrendering.
Yes.
You know, like you can only fight it so long until it's just kind of like, okay. I got a body polish at Spa-Land, and I don't know if y'all have ever gotten one of those, but they take a Brillo pad and they just take your skin off, and halfway through that you just gotta be okay with what's happening. Because you asked for it in the first place.
I'm paying money for this,
Yeah.
you say.
Everything that arises will pass away. Everything.
Well, actually, but yes to this, and it's kind of hard to figure out how to escape from labour pain, although we can take medication, drugs, epidurals, whatever. So there are, but in simple terms, that's a particular place. But for most of life's pains, we are living in a society where we are culturally trained to buffer that, to cushion that, to smother that. Alcohol is the technique of choice. If things get too miserable, go have a couple of glasses of wine, and if that's not enough, have a couple more. So we generally find ways to distract ourselves from the pain. They're just unskillful. But we generally find ways to release ourselves from the pain, but they're mostly unskillful, and they don't actually take us down the path of peace and happiness. They take us to another place of difficulty and leave the original problems untouched, the original suffering untouched. So allowing ourselves to go, when it's hot, go completely to the heat, when it's cold, go completely to the cold, is actually the only way. We can finish a few minutes early if everybody's either satisfied or so confused it's hopeless to continue.
Sometimes you just gotta sit with this.
I'll wait just a moment or two to see if there's anything else, and if not, we'll just wrap up.
Yeah, I'll just add that I like the explanation you gave with the bell.
Oh yeah.
The word, like, we only rely on the word because we're just limited to that.
Yep.
I used to speak Vietnamese with my parents, but then like in 4th grade I stopped, and now I regret it because I don't speak Vietnamese, though I can understand my parents somewhat. And I always contemplate on, man, like I have a great relationship with my parents, but how much deeper would it be if I could, like they're working with a limited set of words from English, I'm working with a limited set of words from Vietnamese, and I always wonder, like, I don't know, it's weird, because on the one side, I feel like sometimes we aren't able to convey certain nuances. In fact, anytime my mom reads anything I write, she's like, Havana, I didn't know you were such a deep thinker. Oh, thanks, Mom. But then likewise, on the other hand, it's not like we have a shallow relationship.
Yeah.
Somehow we just make it work, and the love is like really deep there. So it's again, interesting paradox there.
It is. Because on the one hand, I was talking the other day about this. I went a trip like the trip to Vietnam that we went on with the World Pilgrims. I've been on an international trip to a country where language. What was it, India? Was it in India?
Were you talking about we were playing with the kids? And
We walked into a room, had dinner with a family.
Turkey.
It was Turkey, was it? Yeah, it was Turkey. That's right, it was Turkey
Yeah.
because it was
that
Mardan, it was in the
far
forest.
east, yeah.
So our hosts who were, the 40, 50-year-old parents, 40-year-old kind of parent generation, there were a bunch of them in there. And then, different generations kept coming in, and the older generation, and there were a bunch of those, and then the younger one. And there were probably like 30 or 40 people in there at the end of it. And we had been invited to bring along little gifts for all the kids. So we broke out these little gifts. And people were sitting on the floor playing with the kids, and it's very gender specific society. In a strange way, it's not sexist because sexes are equally respected, they just have different clearly defined roles. So the women would all go off and do, be together, and the men would hang out and be together. And there was very little spoken because we didn't have language in common, and yet there was just such deep connection, really deep connection. So at one level, you just don't need language to connect. There's the story of the two Zen masters sitting down having a cup of tea, and they don't say anything. They don't need to. And yet, the conundrum, the paradox is how profoundly helpful language is. It is a really interesting paradox about it. It is. All right, well, I think the silent ones are going to stay silent. Enjoy being with you tonight. Thank you for your participation and interest, and for joining us sitting here. Talk to you all soon.